Left to me is Oskar. Oskar Hartmann is CEO and founder of Grupi VIP in Russia. It's a very big company now. You're growing the company. We'll tell in a few seconds what you're doing. You got over 100 million US dollars VC investments. And you probably are one of the very large brands in Russia, and I'm looking forward to listen what you have done in a second. Then we have S.Afra is co-founder, chairman, and CEO of Makafoni, the first and leading flash sale site of Turkey. And the company was sold in July 2011 to the Naspers Group. You told me I can't say how much it is. It was a big sum if you read certain things. Very successful, turnover more than 300 million euros last year, as far as that. Turkish lira, and very successful development. Next we have Frederic. Frederic Court is from Advent Venture Partners. You have been long time in venture businesses, and you have developed a lot of e-commerce companies, and you're sitting on many boards of them. Farfetch is a part which you might share in a few minutes some information, and great you're here. And finally, Hjalmar Winbladh, you are a serial entrepreneur from Stockholm. I think an area we all look into it very much because there are a lot of good companies coming out of that area. Your first company was sold to Microsoft, afterwards went public, and you're now in charge as CEO of Wrap, a company that's tried to bridge, as I understood, to give presence and to find a way to sell products. And great you're here. Before we start our discussion, it's all about data. I would like to give you some information where the whole e-commerce market is standing at the moment. My presentation here? Yeah, it's here. Can I have it on the screen here? Just a second. Okay, it's not on the screen. Anyway, here we go. So what you can see, there are two things we have to see. First of all, we can see purchase power, and then research. And what we see today, and that is the reason, if you talk to advertisers, why car makers are shifting money into online, is that the more you spend, the more you research. And people are really interested in just looking for their car, working hours and hours how the car should be, and they do it online. What you see also in this chart is the categories Amazon started on to sell have been actually reached a high percentage in being sold online. Media and entertainment, books, CD, DVDs, that is part of Amazon's success in many countries. If we look in the future, what you can see here are growth rates up to 2016 in Europe. And it's clear that categories like footwear, clothing, beauty will grow rapidly, double digits every year. And there will be a lot of room for improvement. And even toys grow by 7% per year, which is online, which is a big number if you look at the toy market declining every year. Big shift there. What we found very interesting when we looked into the data, this is the consumer electronics market. And you see what happened to the consumer electronics market in America, where multi-channel has gained 82% already on multi-channel sales of consumer electronic products. But in Germany, for example, where you had a very dominant player with MediaMarktSaturn, who was, for certain reasons, not able to conduct a real online strategy, you can see that and this is data I was quite surprised from 2010. We don't have newer information, but actually if you compare that to America, if large players don't move multi-channel online, the whole market stays back. If we look now at the Imperial market, a market we will discuss very shortly because you are highly involved in that market, we can see that even up to 2016, online will grow a lot. And not only the CAGR of 15% will be quite impressive, but also the overall percentage of that market was 25% in 2016 means a lot of room to grow. If we look at our traditional retailers, which are active in our markets, it's quite amazing how they are now reacting because they do a lot. After they slept for quite a while, they now throw everything they have on the online sales channel to grow rapidly there. And you see some numbers, quite interesting numbers here, how, for example, companies like H&M has developed and have gained already significant share of their online sales. Last but not least, if we look at the market players here, you can see that we have pure online players and we have the brick and mortar businesses and of course the vertical retailers. They all are fighting for market share, for reach, for customers, and it's a great pleasure to discuss that topic with you in a few seconds. Okay, my first question goes to Frederic. Frederic, you are highly involved in the venture scene. As I said in the introduction, you have already invested into many e-commerce companies. What is at the moment the situation in venture capital if they look on e-commerce? What is the feeling about in Europe?
So yeah, digital commerce is a big area of focus for us at Advent, but just generally, I think for the overall ecosystem of investors across Europe, for a couple of key reasons. I mean, there is a massive, obvious secular trend of growing online commerce, but at the same time, as you mentioned, multi-channel or omni-channel, as it can be defined, makes that opportunity even bigger. So it's not just offline to online, but also online to offline, and that's really absolutely a massive opportunity. So in Europe, in particular, we are blessed with having a huge market and having a great environment for commerce. We have amazing brands selling great products, which is at the core of commerce. We have great infrastructure, payments, logistics, etc. So it's a great sort of bedrock to build e-commerce businesses. But even more importantly, what we have is a great first generation of entrepreneurs. Some of the most innovative and valuable e-commerce companies in the world were founded by people in Europe. You mentioned ASOS. That's a $3 billion company, probably the largest pure play in the world for apparel. Net-a-Porter, that's a company which invented sort of content/commerce model. And obviously in France, Van Privé, which invented the flash sale model, which then got copied and applied to all kinds of sectors and geographies. So we've seen really great entrepreneurs, great successes, and we continue to see a new generation of entrepreneurs building even more innovative businesses. I mean, just earlier we had David Marcus of Zone, a very successful business which started in Europe and then built that business in the US. Great outcome for the industry, but now people like Hjalmar and Oskar and yourself are building great new businesses in that sector.
Are you seeing any new models, Frederic, for example? Are you seeing any new models which are coming out, which are disruptive? Is there anything you already can see?
Well, I guess you're probably even better placed than me to talk about this, because that's a great example. But I think really today, mobile as the device you have in your pocket at any point in time creates an even bigger opportunity for multi-channel, because you can obviously be at home and play with it and explore, search and buy, but at the same time have an action that then you take in the store. But that's probably Wrap is probably an even better example of, or a very concrete example of how to play with mobile commerce.
Okay. So, Hjalmar, do you want to add something about that?
I mean, maybe I can add that I think it's a very interesting time we live in right now, since in just a couple of months or the last year or so, the primary screen we use to access internet now is your smartphone. And of course, smartphone is something that you bring into the physical world. So suddenly we open up for a platform that can tie in new, innovative digital ad formats or e-commerce formats into the real world and the real brick and mortar stores. And I think at the same time, all the big retailers that has brick and mortar stores only are moving very fast into multi-channel, omni-channel strategies. So we're blurring what is e-commerce and what is brick and mortar commerce, and we're actually seeing a lot of e-commerce only players opening flagship stores to get their brand out in the physical world as well. So from that perspective, it is an opportunity to actually innovate around the ad models to drive sales in this kind of blurring situation in between the fixed or the real world and the e-commerce world.
Okay, could you just explain, who knows rap? Just raise your hand. Could you just explain exactly what you're doing just to...
Yeah, okay, yeah. So Wrap is a company that really are changing how we look at gift cards. And I was very surprised back in 2 years when we started the company how big the gift card market is. So the gift card market in the US is $110 billion. And it's interesting with that industry is that it's the most asked for gift to get 6 years in a row in the US. And it's been growing with double digits, even though retail have been fairly flat over the last years. Of course, gift cards that today are a physical plastic piece that you carry around, or most of the time actually forget in a drawer somewhere, should go digital. And when it goes digital, it should go into your mobile. And when it sits in your mobile, it should, of course, connect to social graphs and your address book to make it super simple and easy to send gift cards. So what we did with those things, which is quite natural, is actually we added a whole new business model to it, which actually making gift card a customer acquisition tool for brick and mortar retailers, multi-channel retailers, and e-commerce retailers as well. So we actually have a brand new way to marry, you know, the need for giving gifts, both in a casual manner to all your Facebook friends and all the friends you have on social graphs and your address book, to actually the need for the retailers to drive sales into their stores. So the retailers through Wrap can give you the opportunity to give away free gift cards to your friends. And of course, $5 to $10 may not be enough to some of your friends, and then you add some money into the gift card. So then it becomes the cheapest and most convenient way to buy gift cards as well. And with the social graph, it's not very difficult to do it, and you get reminded when to do it as well.
It's a great application. Everyone, I just saw it last week. I just can recommend it for trying, for someone always forgetting sending presents. It's really good to do it if you have access to the
It's interesting to see the graph. I mean, this is a girly thing. So 72% of our users are women. So I think it says something about us men that we should be a little bit more caring about our friends.
Yeah. Sina, you have founded Macafoni and have drove the company. And you told me when we discussed our panel today that you are in a full-scale transition process. Can you explain something, what that means, how the company has developed in Turkey, and what that process is?
As we founded Macafoni, this is 4 years ago, it started as a flash sales club, the same like Van Privé or Coupi VIP. What happened in the last 4 years is that we moved from being a clearance channel, we have launched verticals. So we have a shoe vertical, cosmetics vertical, apparel vertical, and we combine it. It's a cycle. So we have the in-season stuff coming into the verticals. We sell a part of it. The remaining part goes into Macafoni. So and this has a double effect. The relation to suppliers is getting much stronger because we start working with them in season and continuing in clearance. Plus also the position for Macafoni is much better because we get our own supply and we can plan it much better. And this is, I think, the transformation which is going on. Now we are making almost 25% of our revenues from new and season stuff. And I believe that this will be increasing, especially with mobile technologies and everything else.
Can you tell us something, because Turkey, I think, is for many of us a very interesting e-commerce market. Can you tell us something about the infrastructure concerning mobile networks, concerning distribution, how you feel it as an entrepreneur, how you can work there?
Sure. Turkey has somehow 35 million internet users and it's growing very fast. The average age in Turkey is 28. And there are two distinguishing factors of Turkey. I think compared to Russia or to all the countries around Turkey, Turkey has a very strong payment structure. So Markafoni collects all payments with credit cards. We have no cash on delivery. The share of cash on delivery in Turkey is 1–3%, which is really an infrastructural advantage. The second advantage is the logistics network, the delivery network. So we are able to send every package out of Istanbul in a radius of 600 kilometers, something like 400 miles, within 24 hours, which is, compared to MENA countries or Eastern European countries, still a very strong advantage. Turkey had a good year in 2012. We are guessing, it's an estimation, but the e-commerce volume is between 8 and 10 billion USD, and we expect a growth of 40–50% in 2013.
Online?
Online, yes. Online, and the online share of the e-commerce is still very low. It's still 2%, and there is the big potential for the future in Turkey.
Where are the challenges in Turkey? When you say what is a crucial, critical point in Turkey? What would you say? What makes it entrepreneurs difficult in Turkey?
I think the most difficult piece is the financing structure. So the business angel community is very small. There are only a few VCs active in Turkey. A country like Turkey needs a complete, stronger finance and investment background. This is the real bottleneck. Turkey, at the time being, is comparable to Brazil in terms of the VCs and business angels 5 years ago. But I think they will catch up very, very fast.
Okay.
So next year, I think I can report you we have 20 new VCs in Turkey.
Okay, that sounds great. You're now part of Naspers, who's a globally company, and I just wanted to ask you, as an entrepreneur who really has started that company, how does it feel now to work for a huge, very successful South African-based media e-commerce giant?
It's very interesting. We are 3 partners, and we are talking always. What has changed since the deal? It's 18 months ago. And honestly, the change is very, very little. So we see them every 3 months. They have an incredible respect for entrepreneurship and freedom. And we don't feel that we are part of a conglomerate from South Africa. So we feel that we still have lots of freedom, and we are launching other countries. You know, we are active in Ukraine and Poland, and we have new ventures in Turkey. It works very well.
Great. Great to hear that. Oskar, you're based in Moscow.
Yes.
And you have started a very good business, which is growing rapidly. Can you tell us something about how it's developing and what are you doing?
Yeah, 5 years ago I made a good decision, and the decision was to serve Russian women and satisfy their needs. So what Russia is more simple, I guess, because Russia is always lagging a couple of years. So whatever happens in Russia is always what happened here on DLD 2 years ago. And that makes it very predictable. And I just want to give some numbers, because you started with numbers that highlight these trends. So when I started 5 years ago, online fashion in Russia was $10 million. So in the statistics, it was non-existent. It didn't show up in the e-commerce statistics. And it was 0%. And so my investment bankers thought I'm crazy to enter this field because it's not there. But today, in Germany, in the US, and UK, you have 25% share of fashion in e-commerce. And this year, 2012, it was in Russia about 12%. So it went from 0 to 12, meaning the fashion e-commerce was the single fastest growing e-commerce segment in Russia, I think probably in the world, because we went from 10 million to $1.8 billion market in 5 years. So it's a very, very, very strong trend. And the growth only last year was 80%. And the second big trend in the last 5 years in Russia that is fueling this is the growth of the middle class. And a lot of people don't know that, that's why I'm telling it here. So 2007, middle class was 3 million people in Russia. That means 3 million people living in families that have a yearly income of $30,000 or more. And in 2012, we ended the year with 25 million people. 25 million people living in families of annual income of this level. That means it's like a 10-fold growth of middle class. And the good thing about Russia, when the income is growing, the consumption is changing big time. So they are upgrading their assumption. They're always changing to the next brand. So we see a growth in AUVs, we see a growth in aspirational brands, good brands, high quality materials. And obviously, Copy VIP was very well positioned to monetize on this trend. So we have built a very significant company with 1,300 employees over this period. But the last trend, and this is the problem of the Russian market, is that this is a surprising trend for me. The first two were predictable, the third one was not predictable, and that is the absolute absence of logistics infrastructure. That means all this demand is there, but the logistics to the consumer doesn't work. And that means every single e-commerce company in Russia, unlike Turkey, for example, where Sina didn't spend any time thinking on delivery, I have been building a UPS on the side as a side project. We built a delivery company that's covering 320 cities. And every single e-commerce company with more than $10 million in sales in Russia is building a delivery network, a delivery company, and a logistics backend, and everything in-house. So that is a problem that has been not solved in 5 years, and actually we went backwards. So it is worse now than it was 5 years ago. So this is the biggest challenge of the Russian market, the logistics.
Okay, so if you look at your company, you have raised then more $100 million by a venture capitalist. Can you tell us a bit what your plans are? Is this a plan of going IPO in the Russian stock market once you're successful? Are you looking for American investors? What are you looking for?
When I speak to my employees, I always say our goal is 20 million packages by 2020. That's kind of our goal. So we want to deliver 20 million packages per year, which would be a 2 billion euro business. And that would mean we have 20% of market share, because the Russian e-commerce market for fashion in 2020 will be 10 billion euros. So we are targeting 20% market share. We are a leader today. And I think the unfortunate thing for me as an entrepreneur is I don't have so much uncertainty. So this will happen. I just have to think how to monetize it. So this is our dream. But it will require a lot of work. It sounds easier than it is.
Yeah. Hjalmar, you have 100% mobile traffic. What's your mobile traffic? In Turkey?
At the time being, it's 12% mobile.
12%?
Also from the sales, but we expect to 25.
To 25 now?
In 2013.
In Russia, on average right now, it's like always lagging 1 year. It's maybe 6%, but obviously on the weekends, during summer, in the morning, it can go up to 25-30%, but I would expect a 25% mobile sales by the end of this year.
Okay. Lots of people talk about Facebook, selling products through Facebook. Do you have experience there? Can you share that?
I can share. I've lost the most money from anybody in the world doing social e-commerce.
You lost.
So that's why I can speak very confidently, because I had a gifting application in Russia for sending gift coupons, and we ran through $10 million of advertising, having a media for equity deal, and produced 2 or 3 sales. That was my first social. Then we had another social network e-commerce company. We were the first ones, Copy VIP, in the world to launch a full shop inside the Russian social network Odnoklassniki. So we were like pioneers for the first time. It was weird, and the first month was 200,000 euro sales. First month. So we thought we found gold. The problem is now 20 months in, and it's still 200,000 euro a month. So it seems like what we have found in my experiments, and we really spent a lot of money there, my conclusion is social commerce is not working.
I cannot agree more. So
you couldn't
Turkey,
agree more.
No, I can't agree more. It's really like this. Turkey is one of the most developed social media countries. So it's in the top 10, Facebook and Twitter, Foursquare and whatever. We have over 1 million Facebook followers for Marcafoni. The share of the social commerce we get is below 0.5%.
And actually what you should add is that Turkey is a Facebook country.
Oh, definitely.
Highly intensive usage.
Exactly. Yeah. And still it's 0.5%. So very difficult.
Hjalmar?
I mean, I think in terms of Facebook, I think what we are using Facebook is for distribution and actually making it easy to send the gift cards. And just to give you some numbers, and I know there was a panel earlier here today that said that you can't earn money on mobile, you can't drive traffic on mobile. In December, we started in the US this summer with Wrap, and this December we sent 2.5 million gift cards. And for one specific retailer, as an example, we drove 72,000 redemptions in their brick and mortar stores. They have 300 stores, so we drove 72,000 redemptions into those 300 brick and mortar stores in December. So definitely, I think the mobile phone is really the tool to connect people, the internet and the social graph, to the brick and mortar stores and to the physical world. That being said, we've done that in the US. And I think from a social perspective and the matureness of retail, I think US probably is a couple of years ahead of Russia and most likely parts of Europe as well. So that's the reason why, even though we are a European company, we have always had a strategy to first really break this in the US, where we have the highest matureness of acceptance from retailers, from consumers, and of course being supported of a $110 billion physical gift card market as well.
Mm-hmm. Two topics I would like to raise in the next 10 minutes, on our last 10 minutes, is Europe. Is Europe a good place? You already said something about, but if you look at the overall structure we have in Europe, is Europe a good place for e-commerce? Or what should be improved that even more e-commerce, more businesses will be created, more business will be done? Frederic, would you?
Well, if you look at, well, you gave some data on the penetration of commerce, so clearly this is happening across all verticals, and we see it now across all countries, and some are slightly behind, which probably is great. Has been great opportunities for you guys to build, in Turkey and Russia. But there are certain areas where Europe is leading globally, and one of the areas where we've been very focused has been fashion, luxury, lifestyle. Now, if you take a very pessimistic view about Europe, you can say again it's a really tough place to be, but we do have a wonderful lifestyle. We potentially can't afford it anymore, but the whole world wants to live like we do. Look at Munich, it's a beautiful city. You go to Italy, you go to Greece, you go to so many beautiful countries that we have. So we've had those areas, in particular in luxury and fashion, where we have a heritage, a tradition of great brands. And the way we've tried to play this is to find businesses which have got the potential to be global out of Europe. And to give an example, that's how we invested in this company called Farfetch, which is a marketplace for fashion, which has got one great benefit for us as investors, that is now less capital intensity because we don't have inventory. But fundamentally, it's about aggregating the best supply from Europe, because we do have the best independent multi-brand boutiques with the best fashion curators, and enabling them, and these are typically sort of local independent stores, enabling them together to sell online to the fashion lovers from Shanghai, Melbourne, São Paulo, LA, or wherever they are. So that's a very, that company could not have started anywhere else than Europe. The entrepreneur happens to be from Portugal. He could have been from anywhere in Europe.
Okay. So, would you like to add?
I think, in general, I think a big opportunity in Europe is for the bigger retailers to more aggressively pursue online as well. And we're seeing that, we saw some data that you had, that multi-channel is happening in a big way. So if, as an example, a company like H&M does 11% of their turnover on e-commerce, we know that's a company that, I don't know what their revenue is, but it's like $10 billion or so. So that means that they're doing already over $1 billion in e-commerce. So I think it's really blurring what's e-commerce and who are e-commerce players today.
Okay. So just to understand and to ask, you can't talk about e-commerce in Europe not without discussing Amazon and eBay. I mean, you see a lot of sales activity there. They do flash sales, they do bargain deals. Is Amazon, eBay in Russia and Turkey? Are they there? Are they starting business there?
eBay is there, Amazon is not there.
So do you see them? Do you see them as a competitor who's having a strategy to go more on the sales side?
Yes, of course they are. They are, one of the top 3 companies there. and they are always dominant. But I think they influence the infrastructure there. I perceive Amazon as a much more stronger competition to our kind of business than eBay. So therefore we are happy that Amazon has a different ranking in countries.
It's exactly the same for Russia. So Amazon has not entered the Russian market. eBay has hired the first 5 employees or so, but it's not. They're gonna not enter with the same model they use in the US. So American retailers in Russia play a much smaller role than German retailers. German retailers are extremely successful in Russia. In Metro Group, MediaMarkt, Saturn, they have entered the market aggressively and are doing extremely well. Auchan is doing well, and a lot of the German retailers are doing. So if the Russian market will be penetrated, it's probably not by US players, because US players operate in terms of Russia, they operate mostly in images, which are not the reality, and Germans are much closer, and Europeans. So Russian market is by Europeans, so French, German, Italian. Amazon is very far, and I think it's not going to be the same outcome as you have in Germany with Greenfield. If they come, they will acquire somebody, because the differences that they have to build is too much. It will take 5 years to build something from Greenfield.
So you have actually a long time where you're good protected in a very good market.
We have some time to be happy still, yes.
And to grow and grow and grow.
But I think at the same time, I think one way to look at Amazon and eBay are platforms for entrepreneurs to build businesses. I mean, Amazon have opened their sites to third-party businesses, and that's there's a company we backed in the UK called World Stores in the home and garden space, and a significant part of their sales happen through Amazon as the platform for them to get to customers. And there are some very interesting success stories. For instance, I mean, not an European one, but an American one, an online brand, which is a very interesting model called Nasty Gal. And that's a business that initially was built on eBay. Lady started selling clothing on eBay, building a big following, and then eventually moved out of eBay, kind of was incubated on eBay, and then started a standalone business with its own destination and brand. So these are also opportunities, and for us, I think these are companies to have a very close dialogue with, because they are the obvious acquirers for many companies. We sold 2 years ago a company to eBay. That was Zong. But we would love to have more companies like this in Europe, but they are a key part of the ecosystem, basically.
Yeah, but you need the exclusive product to make a story like Nasty Gal, because I was an eBay power seller for 3 years, and if you don't have exclusive product, you will make no money. I challenge anybody to become an eBay power seller with products that are available in other shops and make money. It's almost impossible. It's really difficult. So the next trend is Nasty Gal, private label e-commerce. People saying, I want to escape this craziness of Jeff Bezos subsidizing the product business with all his other businesses, and I'm going to create my own brand. And you see the White Company in the UK, which is doing 20 million profit a year, and nobody even knows the White Company, or Nasty Gal, and a lot of stories like that, which are brands that started online instead of offline. And this is, I think, one of the, for me, if I would be in your place, I would be looking for private label e-commerce players.
Well, that's the way ASOS started with their own brand, and then they went into multi-brand later.
Questions in the audience for our panel? Raise your hand, please. There are micros. Any questions? I don't see one. Okay. So my final question is, if you look 5 years in the future, creative ways to sell, what do you think the retail, the e-commerce markets will look like? What are your trends? Will social be successful finally? Will everything be on mobile? What is your vision about that? Want to start?
So I think the only way to be creative in creative selling is to question everything every day and stay curious. Otherwise, you will get out of the market.
Oskar?
Okay, so I would ask the opposite question. When I always ask the opposite question. So what will not change in 5 years? Women still want to look good. Women will still buy more when they start gaining weight. And it's a lot of things just never change. And for me, the key is to build good logistics, and whatever front end I can attach to it, I will do it. So for me, very important question: what will not change in 5 years?
Thanks for that, Oskar.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a race for data, and I think retail are going to demand better targeting, and they're going to demand that they only pay for performance for advertisement, and of course they're going to make sure that to be able to do that, they need to make sure that everything is controlled to the transaction layer. And I think the next big thing is, of course, that now when the internet is actually mobile first or tablet first, it's obvious that your wallet will end up in that device and not being something physical that you carry around. And of course, when your wallet and the data around your transactions suddenly becomes digital, it's going to be obvious that that data are going to be used in a way to really help retailers to be able to target the right consumers to buy in their store for the right customer acquisition cost. And therefore, I think both Google and everyone that is in this space has to adapt to that business model where you can't charge for CPM or CPC anymore. It's going to be CPA and performance based, where the transaction is going to be the end station for that data collection.
Okay, Frederic?
I think the biggest change we're going to see, I think, it will be around multi-channel or actually omni-channel. I think consumers don't really care where the product is, whether it's on a warehouse somewhere or in a store in Munich or in London or Paris. They want that product and they want it now. So I think we're going to get more and more kind of immediate satisfaction that will have to be fulfilled. And that's very much going to be driven by the younger generation, which is mobile first generation. So we have 5 years of massive transformation of retail.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Thanks for the panel.